An original werewolf story written by Wicked Serenity Romance. They called her Barren before she could speak her own name. The night she was born, 3 impossible things happened. The moon turned red as fresh blood, a village elder screamed a prophecy he'd never heard before, and every pregnant woman within 50 miles felt their child go still in the womb for exactly 3 heartbeats. 18 years later, when the Alpha King pointed at her in front of 1,000 witnesses and said, "This one," the crowd didn't cheer. They scattered like he'd just claimed a viper. Because the prophecy was clear. The girl with the sealed womb would end their world. Or save it. No one knew which. And here's the thing that'll keep you up at night. By the end of this story, you won't know either. Before we begin, I need you to understand something. This isn't a love story. This isn't about a broken girl being saved by a powerful man. This is about what happens when the universe decides you're more valuable empty than full, and what you're willing to burn down to prove it wrong. If you've ever felt like the world labeled you before you had a chance to define yourself, this one's for you. Drop a comment right now if you know what that feels like, because Saelith's about to show us what happens when the rejected stop asking for permission. Chapter 1. The marked Saelith learned to carry buckets without spilling by age 6. Not because she was careful, but because her father would crack her knuckles with a wooden spoon if she wasted even a drop. "Barren hands waste everything they touch," Hargan would mutter, not even looking at her. Her mother, Igraina, would glance up from her sewing, mouth opening as if to protest. Then her gaze would slide to the window, to the moon, always the moon, and her lips would press shut. No one defended Saelith. Not because they were cruel. Because they were afraid. The midwife, Varel, had tried once when Saelith was 12. A boy had shoved her into a mud puddle, and when she'd come home soaked and shaking, Varel had stormed to the boy's house. "She's a child," Varel had shouted. "Not a curse." The boy's mother had looked at her with exhausted eyes. "Then why did my sister's baby die the night she was born? Why did the crops fail that year? Why does the moon still rise red every few months, as if checking on her?" Varel had no answer. Because the truth was, strange things did happen around Saelith. Not dramatic things. Not lightning or floating objects or any of the nonsense from children's tales. Just stillness. Women who stood too close to her found their monthly cycles stopping for weeks. Seeds planted in her shadow refused to sprout. Once, a pregnant dog curled up next to her for warmth and delivered 6 puppies, all stillborn. Saelith had cried for 3 days after that. Not because she'd caused it. She hadn't touched the dog, hadn't wished it harm, but because everyone looked at her like she had. "I didn't do anything," she'd whispered to Varel, the only person who still met her eyes. "I know, child," Varel had stroked her hair. "But that won't matter to them." By 14, Saelith stopped trying to make friends. By 16, she stopped hoping for a future. By 18, she'd perfected the art of being invisible. Shoulders hunched, head down, voice soft enough that people could pretend they hadn't heard her if they wanted to ignore her. The day the Alpha King's decree arrived, Saelith was hauling firewood to the baker's oven. The rider wore black and silver, the wolf sigil gleaming on his chest. His voice carried across the village square like a whip crack. "By order of Calor Varen, Alpha King of Lyris. All villages will present their eligible women at the next full moon. The king seeks his mate. The moon will choose." The square erupted. Girls squealed. Mothers clutched their daughters' hands, already calculating dowries. Even the poorest families saw opportunity. If their girl caught the king's eye, their fortunes would turn overnight. Saelith set down her firewood and turned to leave. "Not you." She froze. Hargan stood behind her, jaw tight. "You'll go." "Father, We're required to send our eligible daughters. You're 18. You're going." Igraina appeared at his elbow, face pale. "Hargan, maybe we shouldn't—" "We're going," he said flatly. And when the king passes her over like everyone else has, maybe the village will finally stop whispering that we're hiding something. Saelith's throat tightened. You want him to reject me. Publicly. Hargan's silence was answer enough. That night, Saelith lay on her thin mattress and stared at the ceiling. She felt nothing. Just the same hollow ache that had lived in her chest since she was old enough to understand that the word barren meant more than just empty. It meant wrong. Broken. Unsalvageable. Maybe he's right, she thought. Maybe if the king rejects me in front of everyone, they'll stop waiting for me to ruin something. She didn't realize she was crying until the tears soaked into her hair. Chapter 2. The Choosing. The choosing took place in a valley carved into the earth like a wound. Thousands of people lined the slopes. Villagers, nobles, warriors, all pressing close to see which girl the moon would bless. Torches ringed a flat circle of stone at the valley's center, flames whipping in a wind that smelled like metal and smoke. Saelith stood in the back row of Taro's edge, wearing a dress that had belonged to her grandmother. It was gray as dishwater and frayed at the hem. Around her, other girls glittered. Silk, jewels, hair braided with ribbons that caught the firelight. No one had bothered to braid Saelith's hair. Try not to trip when you walk forward, Hargan muttered behind her. At least give them a reason to laugh instead of pity you. Igraina's hand twitched toward Saelith's shoulder, then fell. The drums began, low, rhythmic, like a heartbeat thundering up through the earth. The crowd hushed, and then he appeared. Caelor Varren didn't look like the kings from stories. No golden crown, no flowing robes. He wore simple black, a thin circlet of silver at his brow, and a cloak that moved around him like smoke. But his eyes, God, his eyes. They were pale as winter ice, and when they swept across the crowd, Saelith felt the air leave her lungs. This was not a man who ruled because he was loved. This was a man who ruled because refusing him felt like stepping in front of an avalanche. The moon sees you, Caelor said, voice low and clear. Tonight, it will show me the one it has marked as mine. Marked, not chosen, not blessed. Marked. A shiver crawled down Saelith's spine. The first row of girls stepped forward, daughters of nobles, betas, families who'd spent fortunes preparing for this moment. They were beautiful, radiant, everything a queen should be. Caelor walked past every single one. No hesitation, no lingering glances. Just a sweep of those pale eyes, and then nothing. One girl's face crumpled. Another's smile froze, brittle as glass. He kept walking. Past the second row. The third. Whispers rippled through the crowd, confusion sharpening into unease. He's not choosing anyone. What is he doing? When Caelor's gaze locked onto Saelith, her heart stopped. No, not her. Anyone but her. But he was moving toward her now, cutting through the rows of girls like they didn't exist, and the crowd was parting, and Hargan was making a strangled sound behind her. Caelor stopped directly in front of her. Up close, she could see the faint scar along his jaw, the tension in his shoulders. The way his eyes didn't just look at her, they looked through her, like he was reading something written on her bones. What's your name? He asked. Her mouth was too dry. Saelith. How old are you? 18. Do you know why I'm here, Saelith? She should have lied, should have said something demure, modest, forgettable. Instead, the truth fell out. You're here because the moon told you to be. Recognition flickered in his eyes, not anger. He turned to face the crowd. This one, he said. The valley exploded. No! She's cursed, Your Majesty. You don't understand. She's barren. Hargan's voice cracked like a whip. She can't give you an heir. She can't give you anything. Caelor's gaze slid to him, cold and flat. I know exactly what she is. Saelith's legs shook. This wasn't possible. Kings didn't choose barren girls. They didn't choose her. Why? She whispered. Kaelor looked down at her, and for just a moment, one breath, his expression softened into something almost human. Because you're the only one the moon wants, he said quietly, and I'd rather face that with you than against you. Before she could respond, guards surrounded her. Not grabbing, not dragging. Just there, a wall of bodies between her and the screaming crowd. Marek, the village elder, shoved through the masses, staff raised. "The prophecy," he shouted. "She is the sealed one. She will end the Age of Wolves." Kaelor didn't flinch. Then the age needed ending. And just like that, Saelith's life, the quiet, invisible, suffocating life she'd built, shattered. She looked back once as they led her away. Igrena stood frozen, hand over her mouth. Hargan's face was white as bone, and above them all, the moon hung red and swollen, watching. Chapter 3. The Sanctum. The palace was too big, too bright, too full of people who stared at Saelith like she was a riddle they couldn't solve. They didn't throw her in a dungeon. They led her down. Down stone steps that spiraled into the earth. Down past torches that burned without smoke. Down into a chamber that felt older than the palace above it. The Sanctum. It was circular, carved from raw bedrock, and in its center was a symbol that made Saelith's skin prickle. A circle within a circle, split by a crescent moon. "Stand there," the guard said, pointing to the center. "Why?" "Because the king commanded it." "That's not an answer." The guard's jaw tightened. "It's the only one you're getting." She stepped into the circle. The moment her feet touched the carving, cold flooded her body. Not painful, but wrong, like being submerged in water that wasn't quite water. Her breath hitched, and then she felt it. Something inside her, deep in her belly, in the place where other women felt cramps and cycles and the stirring of life, shifted, like a lock turning. She gasped, pressing a hand to her stomach. "What? It's waking up." Saelith spun. A woman stood at the entrance, tall, dark-skinned, with hair braided into a crown and eyes sharp enough to cut. She wore robes marked with the king's sigil. "Who are you?" Saelith demanded. "High Counselor Zephyra." The woman descended the steps, each footfall deliberate. "I advise the king, which means I advise you now, whether you like it or not." "I don't need advice. I need answers." Zephyra's mouth curved. "Good. You have a spine. You'll need it." She stopped just outside the circle, studying Saelith like a puzzle. "Do you know what the prophecy actually says? That I'm barren, that I'll end the world. Close." Zephyra pulled a scroll from her robes and unrolled it. "It says, when fields drink blood and the moon shows no mercy, a womb will be sealed by the gods' decree. Not barren by curse, but locked by design. The key that ends one age and births the next. She will be called empty by those who fear her, but she carries the weight that will break the world or remake it." Saelith's heart pounded. "That's not what they told me." "No, because your village is full of cowards who'd rather call you broken than admit they don't understand you." Zephyra's eyes glinted. "You're not barren, Saelith. You're sealed. There's a difference." "What difference?" "Barren means empty. Sealed means something is locked inside." Zephyra stepped closer. "The moon put something in you the night you were born. Something that's been waiting 18 years to be released. And now that the king has chosen you, the seal is breaking." The cold in Saelith's belly pulsed. She looked down at her hands. They were shaking. "What happens when it breaks?" Zephyra's face went grim. "You become what you were always meant to be." "And what is that?" "The end," Zephyra said simply. "Or the beginning. Depends on whether you fight it." Saelith's knees buckled. She caught herself on the edge of the circle, gasping. I don't want this. I know. Zephyr's voice softened. But the moon doesn't care what you want. It cares what the world needs. And right now, the wolves have grown too greedy, too violent, too drunk on power. If someone doesn't reset the balance, we'll tear ourselves apart. And I'm supposed to do that? Saelith's voice cracked. I'm nobody. I can't even make a flower grow. Exactly, Zephyr said. You take life. You stop it. That's your gift, Saelith, and when the seal breaks, you'll have the power to stop an entire age. Saelith stared at her, horror crawling up her throat. You're saying I'm a weapon. Zephyr didn't deny it. Yes. And the king knew. Yes. Rage ignited in Saelith's chest, bright and hot and alive. So he didn't choose me because he wanted me. He chose me because he wants to use me. He chose you because he's trying to save you, Zephyr snapped. If he hadn't claimed you, the moon would have taken you anyway, but you'd have been alone, terrified, and when the seal broke, you'd have torn through your village like wildfire because you wouldn't have known how to control it. She leaned in, eyes blazing. At least here, you have a chance. A chance to what? Saelith shouted. To be a good little weapon? To smile while something eats me from the inside out? A chance to choose how you use it, Zephyr said. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. Saelith's chest heaved. What if I don't want to choose? What if I just want to live? Zephyr's expression softened into something almost kind. Then you should have been born someone else. Chapter 4. The Breaking. 3 days passed. Saelith didn't leave the sanctum. Guards brought her food, water, clean clothes. No one spoke to her except Zephyr, who came twice a day to check the seal's progress. It's moving faster than expected, Zephyr murmured on the third night, pressing her fingers to Saelith's wrist. Can you feel it? Saelith nodded. The cold had spread from her belly to her chest, her limbs, her throat. It wasn't painful. It was hollow, like something was carving her out from the inside, making room. And the worst part? She was starting to forget what warmth felt like. Not physically. She could still feel the heat of the torches, the rough wool of her blanket. But emotionally, that morning she'd tried to cry thinking about her mother, about the way Igrena used to hum while cooking back before fear had stolen her voice. Nothing came. No tears. No ache. Just emptiness. It's taking my feelings, she whispered. Zephyr's jaw tightened. Not taking. Refining. You'll still feel, just differently. Sharper. Colder. That's not better. No, Zephyr agreed, but it's necessary. That night, Kaelor came. He dismissed the guards and descended the steps alone, moving with the careful grace of someone who knew exactly how dangerous the room was. He stopped outside the circle. How are you? He asked. Saelith laughed, a bitter, jagged sound. How do you think I am? Angry, scared, probably wishing I'd chosen someone else. All of the above. She stood, legs unsteady. Why are you here? To see if you're still you. And if I'm not? His eyes darkened. Then I'll do what needs to be done. She stared at him. You'd kill me. If the alternative is letting you tear the kingdom apart, yes. He said it without hesitation, without cruelty, just fact. But I don't think it'll come to that. Why not? Because you're still asking questions, he said. Still fighting. That means you're still human. Saelith's throat tightened. For how long? He didn't answer. Instead, he sat down on the steps, just outside the circle's edge. Tell me about your village. Why? Because I need to know who you were before this. So when you forget, I can remind you. Something in Saelith's chest cracked. She sat down too, mirroring him. There's not much to tell. Try. So she did. She told him about Varel, the only person who'd ever been kind to her, about the wildflowers she used to plant in secret, hoping just once they'd grow, about the nights she'd spent staring at the moon, wondering why it hated her. Kaelor listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then, "The moon doesn't hate you. Could have fooled me. It's using you," he said. "That's different." "How?" "Hatred is personal. This is just mechanical." He rubbed a hand over his face, suddenly looking exhausted. "The moon doesn't care about you, Saelith. It cares about balance, and right now the scales are tipped too far toward chaos. So I'm a counterweight." "Yes." She pulled her knees to her chest. "What about you? What did the moon take from you?" His jaw tightened. "What makes you think it took anything?" "Because you look at me the way I feel," she said. Empty. For a long moment he didn't respond. Then, "It took my ability to want." Saelith blinked. "Want what? Anything?" His voice was flat. "Power. Rest. Touch. I can still decide things. I can still rule. But I don't crave anymore. I don't hunger. I don't dream." "When?" she whispered. "The night I chose you." He met her eyes. "The moon offered me a deal. I could claim you and slow the seal's breaking, give you time to adjust. But in exchange, I'd have to give up desire. Permanently." Horror washed over her. "You gave up your humanity for me?" "I gave it up for the kingdom," he corrected. "You're just the fulcrum." But the way he looked at her, steady, unflinching, told a different story. "That's not fair," she said. "No." A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. "But neither is what's happening to you." They sat in silence, two hollow people in a room carved from stone, both of them disappearing piece by piece. "Kaelor?" Saelith said quietly. "Yes?" "When the seal breaks, will I hurt people?" He hesitated. "I don't know." "Will you stop me if I do?" "Yes," she nodded slowly. "Good." Because if she was going to become a monster, at least she'd have someone willing to end her. That was something. Chapter 5. The Vision. The seal broke on the 7th night. Saelith woke to fire in her veins, not heat, but power, cold and bright and so overwhelming she couldn't breathe. She screamed. The sanctum's walls shuddered. Cracks spiderwebbed across the stone. The torches blew out. And then she saw, not with her eyes, with something deeper. She saw the kingdom spread out like a map, every life a glowing thread. Wolves fighting over territory. Packs hoarding resources while others starved. Blood feuds passed down through generations, sustained by pride and fury, and the refusal to let old wounds heal. She saw it all, and she understood. The wolves had forgotten why the moon bound them in the first place. They'd turned their strength inward, tearing at each other instead of protecting the balance. And the moon was done, waiting for them to remember. "You will fix this," a voice said, vast and cold and utterly indifferent. "Or I will." "How?" Saelith gasped. The vision shifted. She saw herself standing in the center of the kingdom, hand raised. Saw the threads of power connecting every wolf to their name, their legacy, their place in history. Saw herself reach out and sever them. Not killing, just erasing. Wiping the slate clean so something new could grow. "No," she whispered. "I can't." "You will." The vision released her. She collapsed, gasping, the stone cold against her cheek. Footsteps thundered down the stairs. Kaelor burst into the sanctum, guards behind him, eyes wild. "What happened?" Saelith pushed herself up, shaking. "It showed me." "Showed you what?" "What I have to do." Her voice cracked. "I have to erase them, Kaelor. All of them. Every name. Every legacy. I have to take it all away." His face went pale. "That's not..." It's the only way to stop the wars. The only way to force them to start over. Tears burned her eyes, the first she'd felt in days. And I don't want to. God, I don't want to. But the moon won't give me a choice. Kaelor crossed the circle in 2 strides. He grabbed her shoulders, not gently, but grounding. Listen to me. You always have a choice. Not this time. Yes, this time. His grip tightened. The moon gave you power. It didn't give you instructions. You decide how to use it. But if I don't do what it wants, then we'll deal with the consequences, he said. Together. Saelith stared at him. He was offering her a choice. What if I make the wrong one? She whispered. Then we'll fix it. His eyes blazed. But you don't bow to the moon, Saelith. You don't bow to anyone. Not even me. Something inside her, something she'd thought the seal had taken, stirred. Not love, not desire. Defiance. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. I need time. How much? I don't know. She looked at the cracks in the walls, the darkness where the torches had been. But the moon's not patient. It'll force my hand soon. Kaelor's jaw set. Then we move first. Chapter 6. The plan. You want to what? Zephyr stared at Kaelor like he'd just suggested setting the palace on fire. They stood in the council chamber. Saelith, Kaelor, Zephyr, and 3 of the king's most trusted advisors. Maps covered the table, marked with pack territories and supply routes. I want to give the wolves a reason to stop fighting, Kaelor said calmly, before Saelith has to force them. By doing what, exactly? One advisor demanded. Redistributing resources, ending blood feuds by royal decree, forcing the packs to work together or lose their territories entirely. Kaelor's fingers traced a route on the map. If we can prove they're capable of cooperation, maybe the moon will ease off. And if it doesn't? Zephyr asked. Kaelor looked at Saelith. Then we have a backup plan. Saelith's stomach twisted. You want me to threaten them? I want you to remind them what's at stake, he corrected. The moon gave you power to erase names, histories, legacies. If the packs know that's coming, really know it, they'll have to choose, change, or be forgotten. That's extortion, an advisor said flatly. That's survival, Kaelor shot back. Saelith's hands curled into fists. And what if they don't believe me? What if they call my bluff? Kaelor's eyes were steady. Then you'll have to show them you're not bluffing. Her breath caught. You want me to erase someone. I want you to erase one name, he said. One legacy, one thread. Enough to prove you can, so the rest will fall in line without you having to wipe them all out. Horror crawled up her spine. That's still murder. No, Zephyr said quietly. It's amputation. You cut off one limb to save the body. Saelith's vision blurred. I don't want to be this. I know, Kaelor said, but you are. And the question isn't whether you use your power. It's whether you use it on your terms or the moon's. Silence fell. Saelith looked down at her hands. They didn't feel like hers anymore. They felt like weapons someone else had forged. Who? She asked hoarsely. Kaelor slid a paper across the table. A name, a face. A man responsible for 3 massacres, dozens of dead, entire bloodlines wiped out in his quest for power. He's untouchable by normal laws, Kaelor said. Too many allies, too much influence. But if you erase him, they'll know I'm real, Saelith finished. Kaelor nodded. She stared at the name until the letters blurred. Then she looked up. If I do this, if I become the monster they think I am, will you still look at me the same way? Kaelor's answer was immediate. I'll look at you the way you deserve, as someone who made an impossible choice and carried the weight of it. Saelith's throat tightened. She picked up the paper. When? She asked. Tomorrow, Kaelor said. At the full moon. Chapter 7. The Erasure. They brought the man to the sanctum in chains. He was older than Saelith expected, gray at the temples, scarred hands, eyes hard as flint. He didn't beg, didn't plead. He spat at her feet. "You think you scare me, little girl?" he sneered. "I've killed 50 men. I've burned villages. I've made kings kneel." Saelith stared at him. Inside her chest, the power coiled, cold and patient and hungry. "I don't need to scare you," she said quietly. "I just need to erase you." His sneer faltered. Kaelor stood at the edge of the circle, guards flanking him. "Last chance," he said to the man. "Confess your crimes. Surrender your titles. Spend the rest of your life in exile." The man's jaw set. "I'd rather die." "You won't die," Saelith said. "That would be mercy." She raised her hand. The power surged. She saw his thread, glowing, thick, woven through decades of violence and pride. It pulsed with every life he'd taken, every name he'd carved into history through blood. She reached out, and she pulled. The man screamed, not in pain, in terror as he felt himself unraveling. Felt his name slipping from the mouths of everyone who'd ever spoken it. Felt his deeds fading from memory, his face blurring in portraits, his legacy dissolving like smoke. "No, no, please." Saelith's hand closed. The thread snapped. Silence. The man stood, gasping, eyes wide. "What?" He looked down at his hands. "What did you—" One of the guards frowned. "Who is this?" Another guard blinked. I don't know. Why is he here?" Kaelor's face was pale, but his voice was steady. "Remove him. Take him to the border and release him." "But, Your Majesty, who—" "Just do it!" They dragged the man away, confusion written across every face. The man himself looked broken. Not physically, but fundamentally. Like someone had reached inside him and stolen the core of his identity. When the sanctum was empty, Saelith collapsed. Kaelor caught her before she hit the ground. I didn't think—" She couldn't breathe. "He's still alive, but he's gone." "I know." Kaelor's arms were steady around her. "You did what had to be done." "Did I?" Her voice cracked. "Or did I just prove the moon right?" He pulled back, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You gave him a chance. He refused. That's on him." "But I'm the one who took everything from him." "And you'll carry that," Kaelor said. "That's the cost." "But Saelith, listen to me. Every person who doesn't die in the next war, that's because of you. Every child who grows up without losing their parents to blood feuds, that's because of you." Tears streamed down her face. "I don't feel like a hero." "Good," he said. "Heroes don't carry the real weight. You do." Chapter 8. The choice news of the erasure spread like wildfire. Within days, every pack in the kingdom knew the sealed one was real, and she could unmake you with a thought. Some packs fell in line immediately, scrambling to sign Kaelor's treaties, redistributing resources, ending feuds that had lasted generations. Others prepared for war. "They're coming," Zephyr said, slamming a report onto the council table. 5 packs, full armies. They'll reach the capital in 3 days. Kaelor's jaw tightened. "How many?" 2,000 warriors. Maybe more. One of the advisors paled. "We can't hold against those numbers." "We won't have to," Kaelor said. He looked at Saelith. "Will we?" Saelith's stomach churned. She'd known this was coming. Known that one erasure wouldn't be enough to stop the truly stubborn, the truly violent. But facing it, facing the reality of what she'd have to do. "You want me to erase all of them," she said. "I want you to give them one more chance," Kaelor corrected. "And if they refuse, then yes, you end them." "That's genocide." "That's triage," Zephyr said sharply. "Those 5 packs have slaughtered hundreds. They'll slaughter thousands more if we let them. You're not killing innocents, Saelith. You're stopping monsters. By becoming one. By becoming necessary, Zephyr said. Saelith looked at Calor. What do you think? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, I think the moon gave you this power, knowing you'd have to make choices like this. And I think it's counting on you to break under the weight. His eyes were fierce. Don't give it the satisfaction. Saelith's breath shuddered out. She thought of Varel, of the wildflowers that never grew, of every person who'd ever looked at her like she was a mistake that needed correcting. The moon had tried to make her empty, but emptiness wasn't weakness. It was space to fill with her own choices. Bring them to me, she said. Chapter 9. The Confrontation. The 5 pack leaders arrived under a white flag. They came armed, but they came. Calor met them in the valley where the choosing had taken place, neutral ground, witnessed by hundreds. Saelith stood at his side, wearing simple black, her hair unbound. No crown, no jewels, just the cold certainty radiating from her like winter fog. The lead alpha, a scarred wolf named Dacian, sneered at her. This is what you've put your faith in, Calor? A Barren girl? She's not Barren, Calor said calmly. She's sealed, and you're about to find out the difference. Dacian's packmates laughed, harsh, mocking sounds. We've heard the rumors, another alpha said. One man disappeared. Could have been in exile. Could have been theater. You want proof? Saelith asked quietly. The laughter died. She stepped forward. The pack leaders shifted, hands moving toward weapons. I can see your threads, Saelith said. Every life you've taken, every name you've destroyed, every village you've burned. Dacian's eyes narrowed. Everyone's got blood on their hands, girl. Not like yours. She tilted her head. You killed your own brother for his territory. Drowned his children so they couldn't claim it back. Then you blamed it on a rival pack and started a war that killed 300 people. Dacian went still. No one knows that, he said slowly. I made sure. The moon knows, Saelith said. And now, so do I. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Dacian's face twisted. You're bluffing. Saelith raised her hand. The threads appeared, visible to everyone, shimmering threads of light connecting each alpha to their history, their legacy, their names. The crowd gasped. I could erase you right now, Saelith said. All 5 of you. Make it so no one remembers you ever existed. Your warriors would forget why they followed you. Your families would forget your faces. Your packs would crumble because there'd be no foundation to stand on. You wouldn't dare, Dacian snarled. Wouldn't I? Saelith's voice was cold as stone. You came here ready to burn the capital, ready to kill thousands, and you think I'll show you mercy? Silence. One of the other alphas, a woman with gray eyes, stepped forward. What do you want? I want you to stop, Saelith said simply. Stop the feuds, stop the hoarding, stop tearing each other apart over pride and territory. The moon gave you strength to protect the balance, not destroy it. And if we refuse, Saelith's hand tightened. Dacian's thread pulled. He gasped, stumbling, feeling the edges of himself starting to fray. Then I'll do what I was made to do, Saelith said. I'll end your age. Not with war, not with bloodshed, just erasure. And something new will grow in the space you leave behind. She released the thread. Dacian collapsed to his knees, gasping. The other alphas stared at her, and for the first time, she saw it in their eyes. Fear. Not of death, of being forgotten. You have until the next full moon, Calor said. Sign the treaties, redistribute your resources, end your feuds, or she'll end you. The gray-eyed alpha swallowed hard. And if we comply, then your names stay, Saelith said. Your legacies stay. You'll be remembered as the generation that chose peace. Or cowardice, Dacian spat, still on his knees. History won't care which, Saelith said, but your children will be alive to debate it. Chapter 10. The Reckoning. 3 packs signed the treaties. 2 didn't. The night of the full moon, Saelith stood in the valley again, Kaelor at her side. Dacian and one other alpha, a man named Vorian, stood across from them, armies at their backs. "Last chance," Kaelor called. "Stand down." "We'd rather die as wolves than live as dogs," Dacian shouted back. Saelith's chest tightened. She'd known this was coming, had prepared herself. But standing here, looking at 2,000 warriors, ready to die for pride. "They won't really attack," she whispered to Kaelor. "They're just posturing." Dacian gave the signal. The armies charged. Saelith's heart stopped. She saw them, fathers, sons, daughters, all of them racing toward death because their leaders couldn't let go of hate. No. She raised both hands. The power exploded outward. Every thread connected to Dacian and Vorian lit up like lightning. Not just their threads, but the threads of everyone who'd sworn loyalty to them, everyone who'd tied their identity to these men and their violent legacies. Saelith's voice rang out, amplified by the moon itself. "Stop!" 2,000 warriors froze mid-charge. Not because they chose to, because they couldn't remember why they were running. Confusion rippled through the ranks. Weapons lowered. Soldiers looked at each other, at their leaders, at the valley around them. "What?" one warrior whispered. "Why are we—" Saelith's hands trembled, but her voice was steady. "You followed men who valued pride over life. Men who would have sent you to die for their egos." She looked at Dacian, at Vorian. "But you don't remember them anymore. Do you?" Dacian's face went white. No, you can't." Saelith closed her fists. The threads snapped. Dacian and Vorian didn't die. They simply ceased to matter. The warriors blinked, looking around as if waking from a dream. Their weapons clattered to the ground. Some sat down hard, confused. Others began walking away, drifting back toward their homes, their families, the lives they'd almost thrown away. Within minutes, the armies had dissolved. Only Dacian and Vorian remained, standing in the empty valley, screaming at soldiers who couldn't hear them because they no longer existed in anyone's memory. Saelith lowered her hands. Her whole body shook. Kaelor's arm came around her shoulders, steadying her. "You gave them a choice. I took everything from them." "You took their power," he corrected. "They're still alive. Still breathing. They just can't hurt anyone anymore." Saelith looked at the 2 forgotten men, still screaming into the void, and she felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not guilt. Just the cold, hollow certainty that she'd done what needed to be done. The moon pulsed overhead, approving. Saelith wanted to rage at it, to scream that she wasn't its puppet. But she was so tired. "Take me home," she whispered. Kaelor guided her away from the valley, away from the forgotten men, away from the battlefield that would never be remembered. Behind them, the moon watched, waiting. Chapter 11. The Cost. The kingdom stabilized. With Dacian and Vorian erased, the remaining packs fell into line. Treaties were signed. Resources were shared. Blood feuds ended not because anyone wanted peace, but because everyone was terrified of being forgotten. Saelith became a legend. The sealed one. The moon's hand. The eraser. Parents threatened misbehaving children. "Be good, or the sealed one will take your name." Wolves whispered her story in the dark, each version more terrifying than the last. And Saelith? She disappeared into the sanctum. Not because Kaelor imprisoned her. Because she couldn't stand to be looked at anymore. Couldn't stand the fear in people's eyes. The way they flinched when she passed. The knowledge that every person who saw her was wondering if she'd erase them. Kaelor visited every day. He brought her books, food, news from the kingdom. And every day he asked the same question. Are you still you? At first, Saelith said yes. Then she wasn't sure. The power had settled into her bones, cold and permanent. She could feel the threads now, always, every life in the kingdom humming at the edge of her awareness. It would be so easy to reach out, to pluck one, to erase someone who annoyed her, who looked at her wrong, who reminded her of the girl she used to be. So easy. I'm losing myself, she told Kaelor one night. He sat across from her, outside the circle, gray threading through his dark hair. How long had it been? Months? Years? Time had started to blur. How? He asked. I don't feel things anymore, she said. Not the way I used to. I look at you, and I know I should care. But it's distant, like watching someone else's life through fog. Kaelor's jaw tightened. The moon took that from you. No, Saelith shook her head. I gave it up. Every time I erased someone, I had to cut off a piece of myself to do it. And now there's not much left. What is left? He asked quietly. She thought about it. Purpose, she said finally. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know I'm keeping the kingdom stable, but I don't want it anymore. I just am. Kaelor looked down at his hands. I know that feeling. They sat in silence. Do you regret it? Saelith asked. Choosing me? Kaelor looked up. Every day, he said, and never. Saelith's breath caught. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to. He leaned forward. I regret what it cost you, what it cost both of us. But I don't regret keeping you alive. I don't regret giving you the chance to choose how you used your power. And I don't regret, he stopped. What? She pressed. I don't regret knowing you, he said quietly. Saelith's chest ached, a phantom pain where feeling used to live. I wish I could say the same, she whispered. But I don't remember how to feel gratitude anymore. Kaelor's smile was sad. Then I'll remember for both of us. Chapter 12. The Final Thread. The moon came for her on a night when the sky was clear and cold. Saelith woke to its presence, vast and patient and hungry. It is time, the moon said. She sat up slowly. Time for what? The final thread. The one that ends the age completely. Saelith's stomach dropped. I thought I already... You stabilized the wolves, but the age itself, the old ways, the old grudges, the weight of history, still remains. One thread ties it all together. Whose? She asked, though she already knew. Yours. Silence. Saelith stood, legs shaking. You want me to erase myself? Yes. And if I refuse? Then the age continues. The wolves will slide back into chaos. Everything you sacrificed will mean nothing. Rage flared, bright and brief and alive. You planned this, she spat. From the beginning. You made me your weapon, and now that I've served my purpose, you want to erase me so no one remembers what you did. Yes, the moon said, utterly unashamed. Saelith's hands curled into fists. And Kaelor? What happens to him? He will rule. He will be remembered as the king who brought peace. But he will not remember you. That's not fair. Fairness is a mortal concept, ideal in balance. Saelith's vision blurred. All of it, every sacrifice, every choice, every piece of herself she'd carved away, had been leading here, to her own erasure. She looked up at the moon, and for the first time she saw it clearly. Not a god, not a force of justice, just a mechanism. Cold, efficient, willing to use anyone to keep the scales level. I hate you, she whispered. I know, the moon said, but you will obey. Will I? Saelith stepped into the center of the circle. Her thread appeared, blazing, bright, woven through every erasure she'd performed, every life she'd spared, every choice she'd made. She could feel Kaelor above, sleeping in his chambers, could feel the kingdom peaceful for the first time in generations. All because of her, and no one would remember. "Do it!" the moon commanded. Saelith reached for her thread, then stopped. "No," she said. The sanctum trembled. "You will obey." "No," Saelith said again, louder. "You gave me this power. You made me capable of erasing anything, including your hold on me." The moon's presence surged, crushing. "You cannot watch me." Saelith reached past her own thread. She reached for the moon's, and she pulled. Chapter 13. The Severing the Moon. Screamed. Not with sound, with pressure, a weight that slammed down on the sanctum, cracking stone, snuffing torches, threatening to collapse the entire chamber. Saelith held on. She could see it now, the moon's thread, ancient and vast, woven through every wolf, every prophecy, every manipulation it had ever performed. It had made itself essential, irreplaceable. But Saelith had learned something in her months of erasing. Nothing was truly irreplaceable. "Stop!" the moon commanded. "You will doom them all." "Maybe," Saelith gasped. "Or maybe they'll finally be free." She pulled harder. The thread resisted, thick as a mountain, heavy as history. But Saelith was the sealed one, the eraser. The girl who'd been emptied so she could hold impossible power. And she was done being used. The thread began to fray. The moon's presence fractured, splitting into 1,000 desperate voices. "You need me. Without me, the wolves will destroy themselves. You'll be forgotten." "Good," Saelith said, and she severed it. Light exploded through the sanctum, blinding, searing, absolute. Saelith felt the moon's hold break, felt its presence ripped away from the kingdom, from the wolves, from her. And then, silence. Real silence. No pressure in her skull, no cold in her belly, no threads humming at the edge of her awareness. Just quiet. Saelith collapsed, gasping. Above her, through the shattered ceiling of the sanctum, she could see the sky. The moon was still there, but it was just a moon now. A rock in space. No consciousness, no will, just light. Footsteps thundered down the stairs. Kaelor burst into the sanctum, eyes wild. "What did you—" He stopped, stared at her. "Saelith?" he whispered. She looked up at him, and for the first time in months, she felt something. Not cold calculation, not hollow purpose. Relief. "I'm free," she said, voice cracking. "We're all free." Kaelor crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. Not as a king holding a weapon, but as a man holding someone he'd thought he'd lost. Saelith buried her face in his shoulder and sobbed. Not from sadness, from the overwhelming, impossible joy of feeling something again. "What did you do?" Kaelor asked, holding her tighter. "I cut its thread," she gasped. "The moon's. It can't control us anymore. Can't demand sacrifices. Can't—" "Can you still—" he pulled back, searching her face. "Your power. Gone," she said. "I can't erase anyone. Can't see threads. Can't—" She laughed, slightly hysterical. "I'm just me again." Kaelor's eyes were wet. "And the kingdom?" "We'll have to figure things out on their own," she said. "No moon to guide them. No prophecies. No sealed one keeping everyone in line through fear. That's—" he swallowed hard. "That's terrifying." "Yes," Saelith agreed. "But it's also freedom." They sat there in the ruined sanctum, holding each other, as dawn broke over a kingdom that would have to learn to save itself. Epilogue. The remembered 5 years later, Saelith stood in a garden she'd planted herself. The flowers grew now. Wild flowers, roses, even the stubborn mountain lilies that everyone said wouldn't take root so far south. Everything grew, because she wasn't sealed anymore, wasn't barren, wasn't cursed. She was just Saelith. There you are. She turned. Kaelor stood at the garden gate, older now, laugh lines creasing his eyes. He'd stepped down from the throne 2 years ago, passed it to a council of elected leaders. The kingdom doesn't need a king, he'd said. It needs to learn to govern itself. It had been chaos at first. Arguments, power struggles, a few small skirmishes, but no wars, no massacres, no blood feuds that lasted generations. Because without the moon's influence, without prophecies dictating their fates, the wolves had to actually choose peace. Most days they did. How's the council? Saelith asked. Kaelor shrugged. Arguing about grain distribution. Again. Sounds thrilling. It is, actually, he smiled. It means they're solving problems with words instead of claws. Saelith turned back to her flowers, running her fingers over soft petals. Do you ever regret it? Kaelor asked quietly. Cutting the moon's thread? You could have erased yourself, been done with it all. Instead, you chose this. This, meaning a quiet life. No power, no prophecies. Just a small house on the edge of the capital, a garden, and a man who'd given up a kingdom to stay with her. No, Saelith said, because this is mine. Not the moon's, not destiny's. Mine. She looked at him. Do you regret it? Giving up the throne? The power? Kaelor stepped closer, taking her hand. Not for a second. Not even when you remember what we lost? His thumb brushed over her knuckles, a gesture he'd had to relearn when the moon's hold broke and desire came flooding back. We didn't lose, he said. We won. We're just the only ones who remember what we won against. It was true. When Saelith had severed the moon's thread, she'd erased its influence on everyone. The prophecies faded from memory. The choosing became a hazy legend, details shifting with each telling. Most people didn't even remember there had been a sealed one, except Kaelor, and Saelith herself. And maybe that was enough. The children asked about you again, Kaelor said. Saelith smiled. Not her children. She still couldn't bear them, and she'd made peace with that. But the children from the village, the ones who came to the garden to learn about plants and hear stories. What did you tell them? That you're the woman who grows the best roses in the kingdom, Kaelor said, and that you're braver than any warrior I've ever met. Saelith's throat tightened. I'm not brave, I'm just stubborn. Same thing, he said, pulling her close. They stood there in the garden, surrounded by flowers that shouldn't exist, and peace. Above them the moon rose, pale and distant and silent. Just a moon, nothing more. And Saelith, who had once been barren, cursed, marked, sealed, erased, Saelith was finally free. End. So here's what I need you to tell me. Saelith had the power to end the age the way the moon wanted, erase everyone, wipe the slate clean, start fresh. Instead, she chose to sever the moon's control entirely and let the wolves figure things out on their own. Was that the right choice? Because yeah, they're free now, but freedom means they can also choose violence. Choose greed. Choose to fall right back into the chaos that started all this. Some of you are going to say she was selfish, that she should have completed her purpose, even if it meant erasing herself, that she doomed the kingdom by cutting the one force that was keeping them in line. Others are going to say she was a hero, that she refused to be a weapon, that she gave them agency, even if it's messy. I don't know which side I'm on, and that's what makes this story so damn hard to walk away from. Drop a comment right now. Tell me, did Saelith save the kingdom or damn it? Because I'm reading every single response, and I genuinely want to know where you stand. And if this story hit you the way it hit me, if you've ever felt like the world tried to define you before you could define yourself, share this video. Let's see how many people understand what it means to choose freedom over certainty, even when freedom is terrifying. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay curious, stay questioning. And never let anyone tell you what your purpose is.